It's no different here. Now, what happened on Sunday? And with all of that being said, what happened on Sunday, whatever you want to call that, that was a political event. That was not a funeral. It wasn't. They didn't market it that way. That's not what it was. It was a memorial. And what it really was effectively was a big political rally. Did we hear from Charlie Kirk's friends, relatives? Did we hear from the people that knew him the best? No. We heard from the RNC. We heard from the Secretary of Education. We heard from the White House Chief of Staff. We heard from the White House Strategic Advisor. We heard from the Secretary of State. We heard from the Secretary of Health and Human Services. We heard from Tucker Carlson. Is that a funeral? Is that a memorial? That felt to me like the Republican National Convention. That felt to me like CPAC. That felt to me like any generic Republican right-wing gathering. And it had all of the trappings of that. Giant LED video walls, pyrotechnics. Have you ever been to a funeral with fireworks before? Have you ever been to a memorial with fireworks? At the Oscars, at the fucking Oscars, when they do in memoriam for dead celebrities and Hollywood stars that died from getting the vaccine, do they have fireworks or do they play a sad song and show pictures in black and white? And it's somber. At the Oscars, this guy was gunned down at 31 years old, and they're doing fireworks for his grieving widow before she comes out. And she didn't even get the keynote address. The President of the United States got the keynote address. These were some of the scenes. We saw merch tables. We saw the war room with headsets speaking on a panel like it was the Super Bowl. We saw a voter registration table, the pyrotechnics. We saw people laughing out loud, giddily. Donald Trump was dancing. He was giving a speech about how we cured autism because we banned Tylenol. That's the funeral?
I mean, I understand the point Nick is trying to make, and it is kind of weird, but I also have to be honest, like, who are we, or who is Nick, to blame the way how they celebrate, like, or this funeral? Maybe they just wanted to celebrate it instead of, like, being sad and things like that, but it is, selling merch is kind of weird if you ask me, that's true, but, like, it's not on us to decide how they want this funeral to be, right? I mean, like, they can decide it themselves, but that's just my opinion.
That's CPAC. That's the RNC. That's CPAC on top of the grave of Charlie Kirk is what it was. Now, I can already anticipate, and I actually agree with the sentiment, the way that Turning Point is defending this and the way that many people sympathetic to this spectacle are defending this is they're saying, well, that's what Charlie would have wanted. I think that's true. Knowing Charlie, that is what he would have wanted. People say, who are you to say that his desires should not be respected? It's a good question. Who am I to say that? And other people say, well, they're advancing the cause that Charlie Kirk gave his life to. Ah. Now that's a statement that has a little more content. Well, if we can recognize that that's what it is, that's what it is. That was cynically using his death to advance the cause that Charlie Kirk gave his life to in fulfillment with his wishes. Okay, well, I'm glad we can acknowledge that. What is the cause that Charlie Kirk gave his life to? The GOP. That's what it was. Charlie Kirk was the director of Students for Trump. Charlie Kirk made a deal with TikTok, with the leadership. No, this is not a metaphor. No, he made an actual deal with TikTok to push Republican voter outreach on the platform. he was doing this college campus tour, receiving millions and millions and millions of dollars from donors to get young people to vote Republican. He defended the actions of this administration. He visited Trump in the White House. That's why they spoke at his memorial. And what is the GOP, guys? This cause that he gave his life to, that even in death, he is supporting, even with his literally spilled blood. He is lending the emotions we feel about it to the political cause of the GOP and the cabinet members of its government giving speeches. What is this GOP government?
Yeah, all right. I mean, that's kind of weird, but like it can also be the other way around. Maybe because he helped those people, maybe because Charlie Kirk helped Donald Trump, they want to like be on his funeral and like give a speech there. So it can be like on both. It can be also be the other way around, but like it is kind of weird, and especially if you saw the speech of Donald Trump, it was very weird in my opinion. I completely agree with that. It was a very strange speech to give on someone's funeral, but I think this is kind of weird. Like I don't really agree with Nick on this one, but let's see what he has to say more.
Because you know something? On September 9th, we all hated the GOP. On September 9th, 2025, the day before, some sicko shot this person for no reason. On September 9th, you want to know why we hated this government? Because this GOP buried the Epstein files.
That's true. That's true.
Buried and covered up the Epstein files, which they promised to deliver, but which they lied about and then actively covered up. And they've been engaged in an active cover-up for months. Every single member of the administration that spoke on Sunday was complicit in that. And Charlie Kirk defended that in July, a week after the DOJ put out the memo burying it. What else did this GOP regime give us? They bombed Iran. We all know that the Israel lobby and Jewish power brought Trump into the White House because they knew that Trump and the Republicans would offer less resistance to Israel's push to bring America into a war with Iran. That's why we're bombing them in June. That's why Trump is talking about bombing them still. That's why Trump let them bomb Qatar the day before Charlie Kirk was murdered. And it's endless like this. It's the same Republican government that promised mass deportations. They allocated $150 billion for mass deportations. Then the day that bill passed, they said, well, you're not going to be happy about this, but we're not deporting any illegal immigrants that have jobs. We're not going to deport any of the illegal migrant labor. Wasn't that sort of the whole point?
Good point. Good point.
So if the defense of this political spectacle is, well, this is the cause that Charlie Kirk gave his life to, he would have wanted it this way, well, then let's critique it as it was when he was alive, as it is now that he's dead, now that they're using the death. This was a blowout rally for the Republican government. They hosted nearly every member of the Republican government. Stephen Miller, J.D. Vance, Linda McMahon, Robert Kennedy, Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, Donald Trump himself, Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, but of course, Nick, I would be more surprised if you saw Barack Obama and Joe Biden sitting there, Kamala Harris. Of course there were Republicans. Charlie Kirk, it's not a surprise, or it's not like Charlie Kirk was like friends with almost everyone you just mentioned. So I don't think it's weird that the people who were like close to Charlie, that they are sitting there, of course. But it was a Republican Party. I agree with him on this one, but I'm not surprised that you saw many Republican people there, like Donald Trump, and like, of course, they were good friends with Charlie. But I agree that it was too much like about politics, especially for Trump. What I said before, this whole speech, he didn't mention Charlie, or maybe he mentioned Charlie 3 times, and after that it was just like his own agenda. So that's true. But I'm not surprised that there were Republican people at Charlie Kirk's funeral, of course.
Elon Musk, who gave Trump $270 million to open up H-1B visas for the country and said we were racist if we opposed it. That is who was gathered in attendance at the memorial. And we are supposed to believe that if we are upset about Charlie Kirk, if we were hurt by that, touched by that, Charlie would have wanted us to now support the GOP. Look, I'm sorry. And I hate that I am the one that needs to say it. I hate that I'm the one that has to say it. But I'm not going to support the GOP because Charlie Kirk got killed.
I mean, fair.
You have my prayers. Charlie Kirk and his soul has my prayers. His wife has my prayers. His children have my prayers. His colleagues have my prayers. And they have my sympathy. And if they called on me to, do something charitable, I would do it. I feel bad for them. I was affected emotionally by it. But you are not going to tell me that I now have to get behind this Republican government because that's what Charlie would have wanted. I didn't support that when he was alive. I don't support that now that he's dead. And frankly, I don't see what one has to do with the other.
But you don't have to, bro. That's okay, man.
He got shot by some radical left-wing lunatic. And you want to know something? Let's be honest about this. If that radical left-wing lunatic got up to the microphone and asked a question, Charlie would have debated with him. If I got up to that microphone, he would have thrown me out of the event. There's a lesson in this. This GOP does not like its people. This GOP does not like its own base. The GOP base that demands the Epstein files, Trump says, I don't want your support. The GOP base that says we don't want to bomb Iran, the GOP is telling them, Trump always said we were going to bomb Iran. The young white men that flipped for Trump, they like my show. They're not welcome at Turning Point. They're not welcome in the GOP. They were told, if you like Nick Fuentes, you're not welcome here. Now that he got killed by the left wing, which the GOP is far more tolerant of than us, now we're supposed to roll into the GOP? I'm sorry, I don't think so. That's not part of the bargain. And I'm not on board with any of that stuff. And you know what I saw on Sunday? I did see a new wave of MAGA. What I saw on Sunday, just feeling, I saw a revival of like George W. Bush conservatism. That's what I saw. What exactly was the message on Sunday? Because I don't know what it was. It was some generic, vague, Americanized Christianity, like a mega church Christianity, some vague appeal to values, free speech, something like that. That's not what MAGA was ever about. What MAGA was about in 2015 was America first.
And on this point, I completely agree. This is just like, this is true. I also saw that, like, it is not American first. Like, this MAGA is, like, different than, like, the MAGA before. But that's just my opinion. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Feel free to debate me. That's fine. But I completely agree with Nick on this one. It doesn't feel like this MAGA is, like, America first. I feel like it's almost everyone else in the world first and America last, but that's just my opinion. But I agree with Nick on this one. We should care more about ourselves. And Trump, like, what is Trump doing? He's busy with Israel. He's busy with Iran. He's busy with Ukraine. He's busy with almost everyone but not ourselves. And I think it's good that Nick mentions this. And I agree with him on this one. Share your opinion in the comments.
In 2015 and 2016, it was no more mass migration because that's not America first. It's not putting American workers first. It's not putting American voters first. When you bring in foreigners that take jobs and then vote in our elections and put their interests before ours.
Some foreigners, I'm sorry, guys. I love America. I'm a patriot. I will die for America. Please, not me, Nick. Not me.
In 2015 and 2016, it was no foreign wars. That's not America first.
True.
Being in Afghanistan and Iraq isn't good for us. Now they're talking about opening up a base in Afghanistan again. Now we're talking about bombing Iran, going to war in Venezuela. In 2015 and 2016, we said America first on trade. Now you have this policy where they're trying to monetize the debt. They're doing everything they can. It's like this liquidity strategy. They're trying to saddle everybody with money, cutting the corporate tax rate. It's not really helping anybody down here. It's not really helping workers. There's no infrastructure bill. There's no system of tariffs, no tariff schedule to actually protect or foster domestic manufacturing. That's what MAGA used to be about. Now, as of Sunday, MAGA is kind of like this mega church, Rick Santorum, generic family values conservatism. Is that what this is now? And I almost saw with the death of Charlie Kirk, his martyrdom, it is a true inflection point for conservatism. And now it seems that conservatism will be colored by his Mormon, Protestant, mega church, prosperity gospel, socialism sucks, with the patina of Trump bombast over it. That's now supposed to be the new MAGA. It's a recapitulation of MAGA, and it's a modern spin on an old classic, which feels very familiar. Reagan Bush 84, Bush Cheney 04. That's what it feels like to me. That's what I saw on Sunday. And don't get me wrong, I am a Christian, I am a Catholic, but I believe that the mixing of Republican, American conservative politics and these kind of vague appeals to Jesus in name only, to me, that almost seems like the furthest thing from my religion. And I'll tell you, here's the case in point. As a Catholic, we believe that there is finality in death. We're all going to die. We will die. The world will die. Everything created will pass. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Everything is fleeting. And we don't look at death in the way that it was treated on Sunday. Death is a reflection on our fallen condition. It's the pain of original sin. We suffer, we get sick, we age, we toil, we die because we sin, because we offend God, because we are separated from God in the world. Sin separates us from God. And death is the ultimate reminder of our frailty, our mortality, our weakness, the evil within us, our proclivity for evil, the world's proclivity for evil. And the way that we treat death is with some sanctity. We look at that as the passing of a mortal soul into an eternal communion with God. And we actually take that seriously. Death is a somber occasion. We wear black because it shows that we are weak. We are temporary. We are passing. God is eternal. That is why, in some sense, we have to die to ourselves in the world and accept God while we're living. We have to die to ourselves. We have to destroy the part of ourselves that's attached to our bodies, our flesh, our appetites, our emotions, the worldly things, and embrace God now so that we can meet him when we meet our end. And what I saw on Sunday was a repudiation of this idea. I saw something like not a rest in peace, but a rest in power. It was vengeful. It was determined. It said, don't worry, Charlie. We're only growing stronger, more powerful, more chapters, more money, more fundraising, more Republican votes, registrations, more Republicans in office.
I again, like, I agree with Nick on this one. Like, it should not be like this, but I think, like, the funeral we saw was not even a real funeral. That's my opinion. I think they had already like a real funeral before this. This was just like to show the people that they are like continuing to spread the message of Charlie Kirk, that they won't stop, to give people more power, like they won't stop. That's just a message what I wanted to give to like the people, but that's just my opinion. But it's true what Nick is saying. It more felt like a party almost than a funeral. That's kind of weird. But anyways, guys, I'm very curious about your opinion. Seriously, share your opinion in the comments. Do you agree with Nick? Do you disagree with Nick? What are your opinions about the whole funeral on last Sunday? And last but not least, guys, if you liked the video, hit the like button. If you really liked the video, consider subscribing. And last but not least, really last but not least, I wish you all the best. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.